Imagine walking into a financial advisor's office, right? And they look you dead in the eye and tell you the absolute best strategy for your future is to take every single dollar you will ever earn and invest it into just one company's stock.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is, I mean, that's the ultimate high-risk, single point of failure strategy. Any financial planner would tell you it borders on actual financial malpractice.
Exactly. You just buy it, you hold it, and you stand there for 40 years staring at the ticker, just praying that one specific company never falters. But, the crazy part, that's exactly how most of us have been taught to manage our careers.
Right. It's the default setting for professional life.
Yeah. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are jumping into a really fascinating set of excerpts today from a piece titled Diversified Success, The Rise of the Portfolio Career. And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out why the traditional corporate ladder is just collapsing and why having a seemingly scattered resume is no longer a red flag. It is actually your greatest hidden superpower.
I love that framing because
Mhm.
it really gets to the core of what's happening. The very definition of a successful professional identity is undergoing this massive structural shift right now.
Totally.
We are moving away from this old era of institutional loyalty where your value is completely dictated by your tenure at a single organization, and we're stepping into an era of dynamic skill curation. Now your value is dictated by your adaptability.
Okay, let's unpack this because that financial analogy we started with really highlights the vulnerability of the old system, right? The traditional career is literally that single stock investment. All your eggs are in one corporate basket.
Every single one. Your
Yeah.
income, your healthcare, your identity.
Yeah, your networking growth, all of it. It's
hmm
all tethered to the whims of one single employer.
hmm
But a portfolio career, which is, the core concept we are digging into today for you listening, it's exactly like building a diversified 401k. You're actively spreading your risk.
Right. And you're multiplying your growth potential across multiple different professional assets. Treating your professional life like a diversified investment portfolio, it just changes everything about how you operate day to day.
So what does that actually look like, practically speaking?
Well, instead of relying on a monolithic employer, you are constructing a career from multiple, often simultaneous income streams. The source material actually breaks this down into a few distinct archetypes that are emerging in the modern workforce.
Oh, right, the archetypes. Walk us through those.
Yeah, so first, take the professional who weaves together complementary but distinct roles throughout their week. They call this the slash worker.
Okay, the slash worker. Like, someone who works as a part-time marketing strategist, but they're also, I don't know, a freelance graphic designer. And maybe a weekend wedding photographer.
Exactly. That is a perfect illustration. They aren't just doing random odd jobs to make ends meet. They're deliberately curating a specific set of services. So they might use their strategic brain on Monday and Tuesday for corporate clients, right? Then switch to purely visual design work on Wednesday, and then engage in highly social, event-driven photography on the weekend.
I mean, I could see how that keeps the mind incredibly sharp. You aren't just wearing down the same cognitive grooves every single day at the same desk.
Exactly.
But wait, what about someone who is deeply specialized? Does a portfolio career mean you have to be this jack of all trades?
Not at all, actually. And that brings us to the second archetype, which is the consultant. This is a highly specialized professional who takes a senior level skill and distributes it.
Like fractional work.
Yes, exactly, fractional consulting. Basically, they're renting out their executive level expertise for, say, 10 hours a week to 3 different startups. Startups who probably can't afford a full-time chief human resources officer or a full-time CFO.
Oh, wow. So instead of sitting in endless internal meetings at one massive corporation all week, they get to parachute in, solve the highest level problems across 3 completely different company cultures, and then just step back.
Right. They are still applying their core expertise, but they've diversified their client base. It lowers their risk.
That sounds amazing, honestly. And there was a third one, right?
Yeah, the third one is a very common manifestation, the passionpreneur.
The passionpreneur.
Right. This is often a professional who maintains a traditional, stable W-2 role, but they're actively building a business on the side that aligns with a deep personal interest.
Oh, right. So like a corporate accountant who spends their entire day in spreadsheets, but then they run a highly profitable e-commerce shop selling vintage watches or something.
Exactly. Or they teach financial literacy courses online in the evenings.
If you are sitting there right now listening to this, try to evaluate your own professional setup. Are you a single stock investor? Or maybe without even realizing there was a formal term for it, are you already building a portfolio career?
That's a great point. A lot of people already are.
Right. You might have a primary job, but you also consult on the side or you successfully monetize a hobby. You're already participating in this massive shift.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to look at the underlying mechanics driving this departure from the traditional 9 to 5. Because, this isn't just a fleeting hashtag.
Yeah, it's not just TikTok's side hustle culture.
Exactly. It's not born out of boredom. It is a fundamental adaptation to the modern economy. I mean, think about it. Technology is evolving at such a blistering pace that getting boxed into a single static job title is incredibly dangerous right now.
Oh, absolutely.
The skills required for a specific role today might be completely automated or outsourced in literally 3 years.
That need for agility makes perfect sense. I mean, if you were doing 3 different things and artificial intelligence suddenly automates one of those revenue streams, you aren't completely wiped out overnight.
Right, you still have 2 other thriving branches of your career to lean on while you figure out your next move. It naturally builds a financial moat.
Yeah, it's a safety net.
That financial moat is crucial. In an unpredictable macroeconomic environment, relying on one single employer for 100% of your livelihood, it just feels increasingly precarious to a lot of professionals. Diversification acts as that vital safety net. If a contract ends unexpectedly, or a company goes through a massive round of downsizing, your income doesn't just immediately plummet to zero.
Okay, I have to push back here for a second, though.
Sure.
You're talking about agility and building financial moats and, running 3 different jobs. Honestly, it sounds absolutely exhausting.
It can be.
Like, how is a portfolio career not just a fancy sanitized term for being totally overworked? Is this entire movement actually just a desperate defensive hustle because the economy is volatile and corporate loyalty is dead? Or is it, I don't know, is it an offensive move driven by a genuine human desire for variety?
That tension right there is exactly what makes this structural shift so complex. You're absolutely right to ask that. It frequently begins as a defensive posture.
Okay, so out of fear, basically.
Right. Someone realizes their industry is shaky, so they take on a freelance client to build an emergency fund. They are reacting defensively to economic anxiety. However, the trajectory almost always evolves.
How so?
Once that professional experiences the autonomy that comes with a diversified income, the ability to control when, where, and how they work it transforms into an offensive pursuit.
Oh, I see.
They are no longer just surviving a bad economy. They are actively designing a professional life that aligns with their personal values and, honestly, their biological rhythms.
Right, it's the transition from working out of fear to working out of freedom. But wait, that brings up a massive friction point. If this setup is so empowering and secure for the worker, traditional employers must be totally terrified of it.
Oh, traditionally, absolutely.
Yeah, because historically, if a company found out their full-time accountant was running a profitable e-commerce empire on the side, the fire alarms went off in the HR department.
Totally. The stigma of moonlighting is deeply, deeply entrenched in corporate culture. For decades, traditional management viewed any outside professional endeavor as a direct threat.
Like you were cheating on them.
Exactly. The assumption was always zero-sum. If you are spending energy on your own project, you are basically stealing time, focus, and intellectual property from the company. The whole narrative painted the employee as distracted, exhausted, and disloyal.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The source material we're looking at completely flips that old narrative upside down.
It really does.
It argues that forward-thinking organizations are actually realizing that hiring professionals with diverse, active portfolios is a massive competitive advantage. And the mechanism behind this is totally counterintuitive. Having multiple distinct creative or intellectual outlets actually cures the burnout epidemic rather than causing it.
Yeah, it sounds like a paradox to a traditional manager, right? The antiquated logic dictates that doing more work leads to more exhaustion, period.
Right, just basic math.
But human psychology doesn't operate like a simple battery. It is about emotional and intellectual engagement. A passion project or a fractional role in a completely different industry actually keeps a professional deeply energized.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they are far less likely to stagnate or feel trapped in their core corporate role because they have these other thriving outlets where they exercise total agency and creative control.
It makes me think of cross-training for an elite athlete.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, like if you only ever run marathons, you inevitably get repetitive stress injuries, right? Your knees just give out eventually. But if you mix in swimming and cycling, you're still exerting energy, but you are building different muscle groups. You are actually protecting your joints by varying the physical stress.
Exactly. And in the workplace, this is what the source refers to as the cross-pollination of skills.
The cross-pollination of skills. I love that.
And that concept completely invalidates the old moonlighting stigma. When a professional pursues a complex side project, they are effectively upskilling themselves on their own time at zero cost to their primary employer.
Wait, yeah. Free training for the company.
Precisely. Consider the software developer from earlier who runs a successful e-commerce side hustle. While they are building that side business on the weekends, they are actively learning digital marketing, customer acquisition costs, supply chain logistics, budget management.
Which are critical business mechanics they would never, ever learn if they just sat in a cubicle writing code for 8 hours a day.
Right. And the key is that cognitive boundaries don't exist. They don't just leave those new entrepreneurial skills at home when they log into their primary job on Monday morning.
Right. They bring that expanded toolkit directly to the code base.
Exactly. Suddenly, they start thinking about how a new software feature impacts user acquisition, or whether a specific update provides a good return on investment. A progressive company sees that developer not as a distracted flight risk, but as an incredibly valuable asset who understands the business holistically.
To leverage that kind of talent, though, management has to completely abandon the concept of micromanaging hours.
Oh, 100%.
You have to measure value by prioritizing outcomes. Because a portfolio worker simply does not have the time to perform the theater of work.
Right. They aren't going to just sit at a desk pretending to be busy just to clock their 40 hours.
Exactly. They are hyper-focused on delivering high-impact achievements so they can move on to their next commitment.
This raises an important question, however.
What's that?
If everything we've analyzed holds true, if portfolio workers are inherently more agile, carry deeper financial security, suffer less burnout, and bring incredibly rich, cross-pollinated skills to the table, why do they struggle so profoundly to get hired through traditional channels?
Yes, that is the massive roadblock we have to tackle next, because it is incredibly frustrating. You spend years building this vibrant, multi-threaded background, you develop all these amazing cross-pollinated skills, and then you send your resume into the void and it just gets instantly rejected by a machine.
Yeah. The modern hiring infrastructure is fundamentally broken when it comes to evaluating nonlinear talent.
Completely broken.
When a portfolio professional applies for a role, they are usually intercepted by applicant tracking systems, commonly known as ATS, and traditional overworked recruiters. And the underlying mechanics of ATS software are literally programmed to look for chronological date overlaps and specific keyword density tied to a single historical job code.
So it's basically a robot looking for a perfectly straight line.
Exactly. If the ATS robot sees 3 overlapping timelines with completely different job titles, say consulting, running a small business, and a part-time corporate gig, its logic gate just registers an error.
It just freaks out.
Yeah. It assumes the candidate is a flight risk or confused and automatically kicks the resume to the rejection pile. The algorithm doesn't see adaptable. It sees scattered and unfocused.
It's deeply ironic.
Isn't it?
The very adaptability that makes you perfectly suited to survive and thrive in a volatile modern economy is the exact thing that gets you unfairly branded as someone who can't commit. So how does a professional bypass this? How do you translate a wild mix of skills like, I don't know, basic coding, fractional HR consulting, and community management into a language that a rigid algorithm or a traditional hiring manager can actually process?
You have to hack the narrative. The source material outlines a highly effective methodology for solving this exact branding problem built around a framework called SkillDrift.
SkillDrift.
Right. The core philosophy of SkillDrift is that your diverse, multi-threaded career is indeed your biggest asset, but the burden of translation is entirely on you.
You can't expect them to do the work for you.
Yeah. Exactly. You cannot expect a recruiter to connect the dots of your varied background. You have to package it. The framework breaks this down into 3 actionable steps, starting with skill mapping.
Okay, let's walk through how to actually execute this on a Tuesday night at your kitchen table. Because if you are listening to this right now and you have a seemingly chaotic resume filled with side gigs and hobbies, skill mapping is how you fix it.
Yes. So skill mapping requires you to completely ignore your past job titles and extract your core competencies. You are looking for the underlying verbs of your daily actions.
The verbs. Okay, give me an example.
Let's say your background includes running a Discord community for gamers, working as a freelance copywriter, and doing graphic design for local restaurants.
Okay, on a traditional chronological resume, those look like three entirely unrelated career paths. Like, if a recruiter looks at that, they just think you don't know what you want to do with your life.
Exactly. But through skill mapping, you strip away the context and you look at the mechanism. What were you actually doing?
Right.
You were communicating complex ideas, designing visual assets, and driving audience engagement. You extract those core competencies, and you realize that combining them makes you a highly specialized powerhouse in brand storytelling or creative strategy.
Oh, wow. That reframing is brilliant. You stop defining yourself by the container you worked in, and you start defining yourself by the tools you use,
Precisely.
which transitions perfectly into step 2 of the framework,
Yeah.
right? Role bundling.
Yes, role
Yeah.
bundling. Once you have mapped your core skills, role bundling is how you structure your presentation. Instead of submitting a confusing chronological timeline of disconnected jobs that will just trigger an ATS rejection, you group your experiences by the overarching value you bring.
Okay, so you're zooming out.
Exactly. You define a highly marketable target role for yourself. So you no longer introduce yourself as a part-time writer, part-time designer, and part-time community manager. You introduce yourself as a creative strategist.
You are building a new box and telling the employer exactly why you belong in it.
Exactly right.
And the final step is narrative building. This is where you write the professional summary at the top of your LinkedIn profile or your resume, right?
Right.
You take that newly defined target role and you tell a compelling, cohesive story about your nonlinear path. You explain that your diverse background isn't a series of random, indecisive detours. It is a deliberate curation of broad expertise.
You're proving that your varied perspective is exactly what they need to solve complex problems in a rapidly changing market. It completely shifts the power dynamic.
It really does.
It empowers the professional to take absolute control of their own value proposition. You are no longer waiting for a hiring manager to figure out how your puzzle pieces fit together. You are presenting them with a completed picture.
So what does this all mean? As we wrap up today's deep dive, for you listening, the fundamental takeaway here is that the rules of the game have permanently changed.
They absolutely have.
The traditional corporate ladder hasn't vanished entirely, but it is no longer the only way, or even the safest way, to climb. The modern professional landscape rewards those who build a vibrant, unique portfolio of skills.
It rewards adaptability.
Exactly. Embracing this shift, curating your professional assets like a diversified investment, and mastering your own narrative is the definitive way to future-proof your career. Thank you so much for joining us today. Keep building your portfolio, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.